This is a really famous classic episode. It's Michael Imperioli's second time on the show. He's been on 3 times, and I put links to the first and the third in today's show notes. Michael is also responsible for me starting my series of live on-stage interviews. More on that in episode 3. You can also watch us on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/reallyfamous.
I went in to audition for The Sopranos. I thought David Chase was bored and hated me. And then it turned out that's his personality. He's very often like that. You know, I did 3 scenes, twice in a row. And I walked out of there thinking, fuck this job. I didn't get it. I don't care. This guy hates me. Who gives a shit?
This is Really Famous. I'm Cara Mayer Robinson, and I interview famous people. But I don't just interview them like your typical interview. I'm not really interested in those same old questions. Instead, I like to know who they really are and what they really think. Today, Michael Imperioli returns to the podcast. This is Michael's second time on the show. Here's the backstory. I had asked him to record a super short video Q&A to add to a highlight reel that I was making. He said, sure, absolutely, and we met up in New York. But then when we were setting up the camera and mics, we just decided to do a whole podcast on the spot. So we figured we'd just do the video and keep talking and make it a podcast. So the fun of this was that it was impromptu. And since we had already done a regular interview last year, there was zero pressure to cover anything specific. So it was like, we'll just talk about whatever. So we are so relaxed during this conversation. Now I really feel like I know Michael and he knows me. And it's interesting and totally natural. I make a fool out of myself. He's very open. It's good. You'll see. Now, if you didn't hear our original podcast, maybe listen to that first. It's episode number 35. Just scroll back. Also, factoid, it's Michael who kicked my YouTube channel into gear. After our last podcast, we did a little video. I asked him a bunch of questions about The Sopranos and a few other things. I threw it up on YouTube and it got like a ton of views, and it still does today. So you can see that little video by going to my YouTube channel. And bonus, this podcast that we just recorded is also a video because, as I said, the camera was set up. So it's pretty much the same thing, minus the moments when the camera went on auto shut off and I had to get up and restart it. So there are a few blank spots that you'll hear on the podcast, but you won't see on the video. Anyway, you can watch it right now on YouTube. Just open YouTube and search for Really Famous. Have you subscribed yet? You may be surprised by how many videos I have of a lot of my guests and me. So a few nights after we recorded this, Michael invited me to a book reading where he was reading from his book, The Perfume Burned His Eyes. I loved it. I met his daughter. It was such a cool night. Check out my video clips. They're on my Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter feeds. Thank you to the Riu Plaza New York Times Square for sponsoring this episode. It's a bustling hotel in Midtown Manhattan, and it's interesting because Michael also has a history in the neighborhood. Thanks again to my fabulous Patreon supporters, Bob, Pat, Jamie, Lindsay, and Megan. Now, the beginning of this episode is heavy on analyzing acting. If you're not into that, no problem. Just skip ahead about 10 or 15 minutes. After that, we get personal. We analyze whether he's a serious person. We share TV shows we love. We bond. I tell a Spike Lee story. We talk about human behavior and projection. Also Scorsese. So wait for it. Here's Michael Imperioli back on Really Famous. Yeah, it'll be a little different, but so what?
Yeah,
it's a podcast.
Whatever. Yeah, that's
It's
cool.
flexible. What question are you sick and tired of answering?
One is, when you started on The Sopranos, did you know that it was going to be this big, giant success? I've been asked that a zillion times. What do you think the end of The Sopranos? What do you think that means? That have been asked a gazillion times. Those two I've been asked more than anything else.
Do you answer the same way each time?
Pretty much.
Do you roll your eyes?
No, because I don't begrudge someone from I mean, there's a reason why people ask that, because I guess people want to know that, right?
Yeah.
But if you've done your research, you know I've answered that 800 times.
Okay, totally true.
Which you don't always have to do research. I don't know. I mean, I don't begrudge that. But I have heard it an awful lot.
What question has nobody asked you that you're like, why doesn't anybody ask me this?
Well, what's interesting is this is very, very common. As an actor, right, which is primarily what I do. I do other things too, but primarily I'm known as an actor. It's mostly what I've done as an adult. You very, 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 very rarely, almost never get asked about acting, which is what we do.
About the process, your
about
process.
Acting. What is acting? What's it like to act? What was it like to act on the? You know what I mean? They ask you everything about what's so and so like. Well, how is he to work with? What was it like? What are your fans? Do your fans confuse you with your character? What do people say to you when they see it? You know, all that stuff.
What was it like to play Christopher Moltisanti?
Christopher was.
This is an acting question.
Yeah.
Let me be clear.
Christopher, as an actor, it was phenomenal because he, number one, it was an exceptionally written show. So the depth and complexities and intricacies of the storytelling were just an actor's dream, right? So, and the characters were all so thorough and drawn out. But Christopher, to isolate him, had so much going on, so much light and dark, so many polarities. He was a striver in a lot of ways to be better than who he was in a way. Yet he had his demons, you know. I mean, to play those physical states of drug addiction, being high on drugs, withdrawing from drugs, wanting to take drugs, being in a relationship where he was in love with someone and wanted to have a good relationship, yet wasn't able to, really be functional in that relationship for a number of reasons. Trying to be a good mobster and rise up the ranks in the profession that he had chosen. Trying to be a screenwriter or even an actor. But what I admired about him was that he was willing to do the work. A lot of people say, my life is so interesting, it'll make a great movie. My life is so weird, I should be a writer, and he sat his ass in the chair and wrote, which, takes a lot of work and commitment and confidence to some degree. From my point of view, he was based on someone I know. This person I've never told that to, and nobody knows who he is. I've never told anybody who he is. He's a living human being. When I read the script, I thought he'd be a good prototype. He did have a little bit of dabbling with both show business and organized crime, but not really a mobster. But there was some emotional component to him that I always found fascinating, because he almost sometimes was like a bad actor in life. Like everything was too much or over the top, or took him. And I was like, it's almost amazing that a human being, this is their natural state. And I took that for Christopher in the pilot and created him around that. Once we got to the next episodes, then it kind of had an engine of its own momentum in a way. And I didn't consciously think about him or try to think about how my friend would act in the situation. It was just Christopher then.
Okay, so he doesn't know. He has
Nobody knows.
Idea to this day?
No, I don't think
so. Do you
I
talk
hope
to him
not.
currently?
No.
So it would never be a situation where you would talk about it.
I would never admit it.
Why didn't you tell him? Why? Why not?
I don't know. I don't want him to think that he's owed something. I don't want him.
Could you imagine if he thinks?
I don't want him to be resentful. I don't want him to feel like, it's because it's not a judgment on him. It's just, it's just as an actor and artist, you look at humanity and try to interpret it in ways and make art out of it, right? I mean,
right.
You as an actor, you get your raw material from other people, really, from human
So are you
behavior.
a big observer of human behavior, of people? Like, are you always kind of checking them out and analyzing them?
I think it's become second nature. I mean, I started acting school after high school. I went to acting school here in the city.
What acting school was it?
Lee Strasberg, but then
Okay.
my teacher opened a studio right on the corner, 46th and 8th. And I was there for many years.
Oh, that's literally right on the
It's gone
corner.
now, the building, but we were there. And, being in New York at that time, or any time really, and being around so many people, so many different types of people is great for an actor, And I think probably any kind of artist, especially like
Right.
in drama or movies or anything like that.
Because it's interesting, too, that you think about somebody who's a very successful actor as like somebody who has to kind of think about himself all the time, right? But really, you have to be in touch with and connecting to other people to be able to bring that out. Is that right?
It's both, really, because you also have to know yourself, too, because ultimately it's you. You're never going to become another person, Like when Strasberg does this, what they call method acting, or whatever that is, and you do these exercises. The first exercise you do at Lee Strasberg Institute is the coffee cup, which is basically you try to feel the sensory elements of a cup of coffee, right? You try to feel the weight of the cup, the shape of the cup, the taste of the coffee, the smell, all those things, right? Trying to make the imaginary, trying to relate to the imaginary in a realistic way. You're never going to have a cup of coffee in your hand. It's not going to happen. It's all imagination, right? And no matter what you do, you can gain 100 pounds, you can become a junkie for a year, if that's the character. Whatever you do, you're never going to be that character. You're only going to, at the end of the day, you are still yourself, right?
Yeah.
So you do have to know yourself very well, too. My favorite actors tend to be the ones who, like Jenna Rollins is probably my favorite actor, whatever, male or female, or any gender. And if you look at the two movies that I hold highest in regard, opening night, Woman Under the Influence, there's no extreme weight gain or weight loss. There's no prosthetics. There's no accent. There's no this or that. She does very little in changing her physicality. Her hair is a little different. Maybe her makeup wardrobe's a little different. Yet her center of gravity alters so much that they're completely two different human beings. That to me is amazing. I mean, gaining 100 pounds, yeah, you're going to be fat. I mean, that's dieting. That's not really acting. I mean, it's incredible commitment, but,
That's like, I'm thinking of Bradley Cooper when he was on Broadway, right? Didn't he play the Elephant Man or something? And he didn't actually have any prosthetics or anything. He didn't do anything physically, but he actually looked on stage is what I heard about it.
I didn't see it. I know David Bowie did that originally on Broadway.
And that there was
just
nothing.
manipulated his body.
So
although when you see the movie and John Hurt is in prosthetics and stuff, it's very moving just because that's a story that's all about appearance, right? I mean, the guy's appearance as a monster to the world, and he wasn't as human. So as a movie, it kind of is striking. But on stage, I think that might be distracting. Just to see this kind of prosthetic. On movies, it's so controlled photographically.
That it's meant to look real.
Right, and it looks like the movie looks like it was shot 100 years or whenever he lived,
Did Sally Field, I just read her book. That's why I'm thinking of her when you said something about this. It was what you said about it's all about you and knowing yourself. And I just read her autobiography in pieces. I just finished it like this week. And she talked about going through these classes with, Lee Strasberg.
She was at the actor studio.
Yes. Oh, the actor studio. Yeah. And how it was these things where she would have to, it was basically like she would have to dig up these things from the past.
Yeah, that helps because, there was one exercise that I learned through my teacher that has always become a big part of my work, with something called a private moment, which is basically you just create the imaginary surroundings of a certain place and time, and try to, put yourself there, but really make an effort to see it, to hear it, to feel it, so you're engaging your sense faculties in something rooted, like you're really trying to use the sense faculties like you would in life. And what that does for me has always helped me create a sense of privacy in public, because when you're acting, you're in public, even if it's just you in front of the camera, but there's a crew, or you're on stage or something, and there's an audience. And to be able to feel private in public is what you need to do as an actor.
How do you do that?
You have to really, you have to commit yourself mentally and physically to the task at hand.
So do you ignore everybody around you?
Yeah, you do and you don't. It's weird because the reality is, if you're in the theater, there's a couple hundred people watching you. And, you have to know that or you're psychotic, right? Because that's your reality. You're no matter what you do, they're there. So it's almost like you're tricking yourself into believing you're not in a theater, but you're, standing on a mountaintop.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So how did you then, because you were talking about acting, you were talking about the complexity of Christopher. So how did you get yourself into that mode? Like, how did you do that? What did you do to prepare before you were shooting?
Like I said,
besides the guy.
Besides the guy, guy is a lot, because like once you define the character and find it, right? So now, you get the next episode. It's instinctual, right? It's like picking up a guitar. You already know how to play it, right? You don't have to learn how to play the guitar every time you pick it up. You just play it. Before you know how, you have to learn the chords. It's like playing a song. You have to learn the chords. You have to learn the progression. You have to tune the guitar. You have to buy the string. Once you do that, well, now you're given another song, and then you know how to play the chord. You have a facility towards it, right?
Yeah.
Then you're kind of tailoring it to each episode. So there might be a specific scene that has a certain demand to it that's extreme or maybe more difficult than, so you have to figure out, well, how am I going to tackle that problem? Sometimes, and it's the most fun, I think, something emotional going on in your current life, in your real life, parallels something with the character. And you could just kind of
feel it.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really interesting. But that's usually not the case. So you have to create it. So maybe you'll go into like a memory, maybe you'll go into thinking about something or someone and really trying to connect to that. And sometimes you don't even need, sometimes it's just imagination. At the end of the day, acting's really about imagination, I think. So is writing.
I wanted to ask you about that too. So like, what's the process? Because I know that you wrote a few episodes for The Sopranos. Yeah. Was it 4?
5.
Am I remembering that right? 5.
Yeah.
So you wrote 5 Sopranos episodes. So what was the process with that? How did you do that? How do you take a stab at, I'm going to write an episode of The Sopranos?
I wrote a spec script between the first and second seasons because I fell in love with the show and all the characters and the writing. I had been writing for many years, but never really finished anything till right around that time. I wrote with a partner of mine at the time, a writing partner at the time, Summer Sam, that Spike Lee did. So I wrote this spec script and gave it to David Chase and had David come see the Summer Sam premiere. And he liked it a lot. And in the spec, Christopher OD'd and then has this vision of the afterlife. So David said, well, I'm planning on Christopher getting shot, so we can use all this stuff in the episode, and that's how that happened. So that was a specific one. I didn't do pitches after that, but I was involved in, we would meet before shooting the season, the writers, and start talking about
the whole story arcs.
And then sometimes you just throw out ideas. What if storyline ideas? And then we'd figure out storyline ideas and figure out 3 storylines for an episode, and then you'd outline an episode, very often together with the other writers and David. The other writers at the time were just Robin Green, Mitchell Burgess, Terry Winters, and Matt Weiner for the most part. And then you'd go off with an outline and write an episode.
So you would write it by yourself, though?
You'd write the first draft by yourself.
And then you'd come back
get
and
notes and write a second draft, maybe a third. David always did a final pass on every script. And just, yeah, which was important, I think, to keep this unifying vision of the show, and he'd add or subtract things. But it was, at the end of the day, a very collaborative process, which it should be. It's not,
And you like that? You prefer that?
I liked it for that. I mean, not everything I've wrote and directed a movie which was not collaborative. That was just my script. I mean, and I wrote a book which was not collaborative.
Right.
Which was just shooting the movie was very collaborative, but writing of that movie was not. Right?
Yeah.
Shooting of a movie is completely collaborative because you have a whole crew and actors and a cast and producers.
Right, because writing is usually such an individual, like a lonely,
solitary.
Can be lonely.
Yeah. I've written both with other people and by myself. And
So are you a serious person, do you think, generally?
Sometimes, not always. Sometimes I'm very ridiculous.
Are you a ridiculous person?
Sometimes too, yeah.
Well, like, when are you ridiculous?
I don't know,
what do you
sense
do?
of humor. I find, silly things funny very often.
Like what?
Like American Dad. It's my favorite show. TV
Really?
show. Oh, by far.
Okay.
By far.
What else?
American Dad's pretty friggin' awesome. What else?
You're sticking with American Dad
I
only?
love it. I love Stan Smith and Jeff Fisher.
Do you watch Schitt's Creek?
No. I watched the first one. I didn't like it.
No, you're
Should
not
I
going
stick
to
with
like it. Yeah. I had a friend tell me about 2 weeks ago. She said, I think it actually took 6 episodes, she told me.
Really?
So at the beginning, I'm like, first of all, I'm like, this is not for me.
6 episodes.
But they're 22
Seinfeld,
minutes.
I saw him do part of a short set at a benefit 2 weeks ago, and he went into this whole thing. He's like, yeah, everyone's got the show, my show. It's like, you're not going to like it till season 4. You got to get through season 3, and then season 4, you're really going to connect,
You just have to be in pain for
for 3 seasons, but the season 4 is going to blow your mind. I watched the first one. I love Eugene Levy. I have since I'm a little kid from
funny.
Second City stuff. Bobby Bittman, he used to do this stand-up comedian character, Mr. Showbiz guy, which was just out of control. He was so great on that. And then the Christopher Guest movies, like in Waiting for Guffman. He's
of course, but
Schitt's Creek is great, huh?
So, yeah, I didn't like it at first either. I was like, it's really not my show. Right. This is not my kind of thing. The shtick, it's not my thing. But just because my friend Christy had said 6 episodes and they're 22 minutes each. Yeah. So it's easy.
Okay.
By 5, I was so grateful that I had discovered this show because every character is really Catherine O'Hara. Come on,
yeah,
so
she's amazing.
funny.
I know,
and Eugene's son, Dan Levy, is so funny too, and so is the girl who plays the daughter. Go back to it.
I gotta
please.
go back to it. Okay.
By 5, I'm going to say until by 5, you'll be very glad. Yeah. So Schitt's Creek.
I think The Office, the original, the British one, was one of the great comedies of all time.
I never saw the original.
It so much, and then the specials, and then Ricky last Life on the Road, David Brent special that he did like 2 years ago, just fantastic. I loved it.
So you crack up, or you like laughing out loud on your couch or something?
The Honeymooners, though, probably maybe my favorite show of all time.
Did you watch it growing up?
Oh yeah.
And you still do now?
It's still on Channel 11 in New York, which is one we used to watch it as kids.
It was Pix, right?
It's still on there.
Do you remember this
sometimes.
with Pix? I think it was. They had this game where like you would call in and say like Pix.
Yes.
Do you remember? You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
There would be like some kind of like a video game or something, and you'd have to, whoever would call in would say it, and then you would try to, when you'd say it, they would like get the little like Pong or something.
Right.
I want to say.
I do vaguely remember
that's
that.
when we were kids. But okay, so you could be
11.
silly. Yeah, Channel 11.
And the Yankees were on Channel 11 for many years. I don't know if they still are once in a while. They have their own network, but I think once in a while they still are or something.
And the Honeymooners, you say?
Yeah. And Twilight Zone.
Well, and the Twilight Zone was
on Pix.
Now on again. Do you know about this remake?
I've heard about it. I haven't seen it yet.
It's by I want to say Jordan Peele, who did Get Out. You know Key
I
and
didn't
Peele?
see it. Yeah.
You didn't see Get Out?
No, I mean I've heard of it. Obviously.
Do you watch movies much or no?
Not a ton. No.
Not even at home?
Sometimes I do. Sometimes,
Which ones?
The last movie I saw was Cold War. Did you see that? It was a Polish movie. It was fantastic. But the best movie of the year for me was Well, there were two: Black Klansman and Can You Ever Forgive Me?
I did not see Can You Ever Forgive Me.
That might have been my favorite movie of the
Wait,
year.
what was that?
That was Melissa McCarthy and Richard E. Grant. It's a true story about this.
She was like a played serious person, right?
Yeah, it's so good. Really great.
All right, so I'll catch that. So Spike Lee, your friend Spike Lee.
Spike Lee, yeah.
What did you think about him getting the Oscar but not getting the Oscar? But he didn't get the Oscar. He got the Oscar, but he didn't get the Oscar.
What do you mean?
He got the Oscar for
screenplay.
Yeah.
Well, that is an Oscar.
It is, but I think what he really wanted was Best Picture.
Yeah, or Best Director, right?
Or Best Director.
But he got an Oscar, which he deserves and has deserved for a long time. And I was really happy to see that. Yeah.
Because you know that he lost the Oscar for Do the Right Thing to Driving Miss Daisy. And then if we're saying he lost the Oscar, which I think he would say.
Every time somebody's driving somebody, he loses.
Exactly. Green Book won.
Right, to Green Book. But he did win, so that was good. I mean, Do the Right Thing was released, what year was that, 89, 88?
I don't know.
It was before I knew him, and I had seen his first two movies. First movie I thought was brilliant. The second one I didn't like, School Days. But
which one was the first?
She's Gotta Have It.
Oh, okay. Which is now on Netflix as a series, you realize.
Which was a thrilling debut. Like, you just saw this guy's genius in every frame. But Do the Right Thing had a lot, right before it was released, there was a lot of controversy because everyone was afraid it was going to incite race riots, literally. Especially in New York, because there was a lot of racial tension at that time. There were some incidents where there was, I think in Bensonhurst or Bay Ridge, where these gangs of some Italian Americans beat up black kids. So there was like incidents in the city that contributed to a lot of racial tension. And it was people were really kind of worried. And I went opening night with my girlfriend at the time to see it. Not at the premiere, at the day it was released in the theaters. We went down to the Village, and you could feel like this tension in the theater. It was a pretty mixed audience, probably more white than black because it was the Village, but it was mixed. There were, it was a New York crowd, but there was this. You could feel this like tension and electricity. Like, what is this going to be? And walking out of that theater, we were more together than we were before we went in. We were more united and somehow understood each other a little more. I don't know, but I walked out and I said, if a movie can do this, that's really amazing.
Powerful, yeah.
Really powerful.
Yeah.
I'll never forget it.
That was a big movie. I didn't know there was all that tension beforehand that they were worried about. And then what happened when it actually came out? I only saw it for the first time like years later. So what happened after it came out?
I think what I described was more, the case, that people did, and it's not a movie that offers an answer.
Right. It just reflects
He reflects
society.
on really 2 points of view, particularly Martin Luther King's one of nonviolence and Malcolm King and Malcolm X, By Any Means Necessary. And, had us thinking about it.
Yeah.
And not only had us thinking about it, but had us really entertained. It's not only a movie that addresses something very profound and serious and difficult. It's also a lot of fun and alive. Like, it's the opening credits with Rosie Perez dancing and
I can tell you something about that.
And it's funny, too.
So I would tell you about that opening scene. When I think I told you when I asked you to do this recently, I said I just been with Spike Lee, and I won't say the whole story, but you know what he told me that day? It was that he realized only years after Do the Right Thing that opening sequence with Rosie Perez dancing was basically him putting on the screen something that impacted him when he was 6 years old. Bye Bye Birdie. Seeing it at Radio City Music Hall, he said basically at the beginning of Bye Bye Birdie is Anne Margaret dancing in front of the camera. And he said he had no idea that he did it, but he basically wrote that scene into Do the Right Thing.
It was always there.
And didn't know until years later that's where it came from.
Yeah,
Isn't that interesting?
That's very interesting.
And
that happens sometimes.
That does.
Because when you're
it's in
young,
your subconscious.
You're young, you absorb things in ways that just, stay with you. And you're so impressionable, and someone like Spike, who is a great artist, has always been an artist, even when he was a kid.
Yeah.
So when those things are going in and staying somewhere, when they really touch you, you know.
Yeah.
Also, I imagine him being at Radio City and that whole experience, because I saw movies there as a kid too, you know. I like going to Manhattan and being by Rockefeller Center and in Radio City on this gigantic screen in this gigantic theater. It's just like, you know, amazing.
Well, that's what he said. He was 6, and his mother took him to see Bye Bye Birdie there, and it was the whole experience of being at Radio City.
Yeah.
And in fact, I shared my own experience there, but it was not as a kid. I didn't see any movies there then, but I did 2 years ago. It was the closing night of the Tribeca Film Festival. They had The Godfather Part 2 being screened at Radio City Music Hall, followed by a panel with everyone.
All the actors, yeah.
Francis Ford Coppola, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Diane Keaton, Robert Duvall, James Caan, Talia Shire. They were all there.
Awesome. Yeah,
so that was something. So when I heard about it, I told my dad, who's like a Godfather fanatic.
That must have took 12 hours or something.
Yeah, well, exactly. So my dad is like 84, and I'm like, Dad,
breaks.
we've got to go, but we can't go to the whole thing because each Godfather film is like 3 hours, right? Somewhere around
2
there.
is like 3.5.
Yeah.
One
and
is
I said,
almost 3 or 4 hours.
they're screening both movies, and then the panel, we're never going to make it. Why don't we just go for part 2 and the panel? So my dad says, no way. What are you, crazy? We're going for all of it. And he's seen each movie at least 100 times.
Yeah.
At least. So we go, and I have to tell you, the experience of being in Radio City Music Hall, seeing The Godfather on the big screen, surrounded by other people, incredible. I would never take it back. It was one of the greatest. They had an intermission. We got some water, maybe a snack. We went in for part 2. It was just as good. It flew by. The panel came on. It was okay. Not that great, the panel. But the experience of seeing the films there, crazy good.
Yeah.
Best.
I can't imagine.
So I would recommend that to anybody. They're going to show a film, any film almost, but a good film at Radio City, you do it.
Yeah.
So I didn't think Spike Lee liked me, actually, until I told him that story. I'm being honest.
He's, Spike is, not the, he doesn't open up right away. You know what I mean? I'll put it that way.
That's a good way to put it.
But that doesn't mean he doesn't like you.
Well, that's what I thought.
That's just his personality.
I guess. But I feel like if I'm not reading like good signals, then I do worry that maybe they don't like me. Not that I'm obsessed with like being liked.
It's not about that.
It's not about that?
No.
What's it about?
It's part of it's his personality. I went in to audition for The Sopranos. I thought David Chase was bored and hated me. And then it turned out that's his personality. He's very often like that.
That totally makes sense, right?
I did 3 scenes, twice in a row. And I walked out of there thinking, fuck this job. I didn't get it. I don't care. This guy hates me. Who gives a shit? And it turns out he liked me. But that was, because you're interpreting it.
Yeah, you're interpreting. But I mean, sometimes the things right. Our own insecurities come through, right. That's our interpretation.
Right.
But at the same time, there are certain objective things that could be perceived by most people as this person is not into you.
Sometimes, but not. Yeah.
But at the end, I will say this: that at the end, he took me on a tour of his offices. So he has like 3
in Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So
Fort Greene,
have you been there?
I was at the one that was the firehouse.
Yes.
That one? Yeah.
So have you been inside? Notice? I mean, do you remember seeing all of this? His 3 stories, and there's just
the posters. The memorabilia.
The memorabilia is it's really like the greatest museum, and everything. There are these movie posters signed by everybody. Fellini, exactly. Mm-hmm. There's a big Lestrada, and it's Fellini, and it's not just Fellini signing it; it's Fellini signing it to Spike.
Yeah.
So he did show me a lot of these things after, I guess, because he realized that I was into that. And so then at the end, I met with his rep or whoever it was who set it up. And, he asked me how it went. And I said, I don't know if he was really into it, to be honest. And he said, well, he did take you for a tour around. And I said, well, does he take everybody for a tour? And he said, no. So I felt good about that, at least.
No, he would not take you for a tour.
You don't think?
No way. He just couldn't wait for you to get out of there. So you completely misinterpreted the whole thing because he took you for a tour.
Okay.
Yeah, he would have got rid of you right away if he didn't like you.
All right, fair enough.
Like anyone else, yeah.
Fair enough. Do you ever think about that, about what other people think of you, though? Like, are you thinking about that normally?
Everybody does.
A lot?
A lot? Probably less than I used to. Just get older and just don't care as much.
Yeah.
Not as invested in that as I was.
Plus, you meet a lot of people. Okay, I have to turn this back on. This shuts back off after half. What do you make of that?
But you just got to get past that. I mean, who cares at the end of the day? I mean, your instincts, some people's instincts are to be liked. Some people's instincts are not to be liked. Mm-hmm. Some people just don't. I don't know. They like to be abrasive, or I don't know. But, I care less and less about that as I get older.
Do you feel like people have a good sense of who you are when they meet you or when they know you?
When they know me?
I don't know. Is that a
what do
weird
you mean
question?
by know you? Not when they meet you, no, of course not. But if you get to know someone,
yeah,
I would think.
So, like, would somebody leave you? Like, I left Spike Lee thinking he did not like me.
I have no idea. Depends on the conversation, I guess. Every conversation's different. It's it's what happens between two people, right?
Plus, you show different sides of yourself to different people too. Not only do you show them, but certain people bring out certain sides of us.
Absolutely, of course.
And you don't even know that that's going on.
Of course.
What about when you are with somebody who brings out a weird side in you that you don't like necessarily? Have you had that experience ever?
Yeah, sometimes people can push your buttons and bring out, feelings of hostility or being impatient or being, annoyed and stuff like that, which are not qualities I particularly like in myself, but that happens.
Right. Like, I think I'm a pretty, relaxed person.
Yeah.
But there have been a couple of people over the years who, thought of me as, kind of a mean person or something. I'm like, what? Who would even think of that? And it's so interesting to me that it makes...
Often. Right.
Yes, it's a reflection, it's a projection of themselves, what there's going on inside of them.
Yeah. You become their mother or something,
exactly.
or their father, and they're like, something reminds you of
triggers
someone else
them.
And it triggers. But we have no power over that. We have no control over that.
But it is interesting to me. Okay, so let's talk about, we talked about me not thinking Spike Lee liked me. How about Scorsese? Did you feel like he liked you?
I just saw him Saturday night, actually, at
really?
David Johansen's concert at Cafe Carlyle.
How was that?
It was a great concert. It was so good. It was Buster Poindexter, but it really was kind of, he calls it his personality crisis tour, so it's kind of Buster, but it's really David Johansen. And he was only doing songs that he wrote. Buster typically would do a lot of covers and blues stuff and loungy stuff, but this was just David Johansen songs from a big wide spectrum of his career, and it was really good. And
did you actually hang out with Martin Scorsese?
At the end, we chatted for a little bit. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So do you ever feel like you're okay? So you spend a lot of time with somebody when you're on a film set or something. Like you spent years with David Chase and everybody else on The Sopranos.
Right.
You spent a long time, not as long, with everybody from Goodfellas and from Alex Inc. and from everything that you've done. So what happens after? Do you kind of part ways? You think you're going to stay in touch? You don't stay in touch? Do you only stay in touch with the people? Or what? How does that work out?
I stay in touch with a lot of people from The Sopranos. But a lot of them I had already been friends with. Like two of the actors from the show I went to school with over here when I was a teenager. And a lot of the other actors I knew from before The Sopranos, from movies and plays and all kinds of stuff. So that was kind of a unique thing because it was, and I'm still in touch with a lot of them socially.
Who specifically?
Well, I was in class with John Ventimiglia and Sharon Angela. John played Artie Bucco, the chef. Sharon played Rosalie April. I went to school with them. I've known them since I'm a kid. And we've done lots of stuff together before and after, especially independent movies. The one movie that I wrote and directed, they're both in it. It's actually screening on Saturday at the Metrograph. But we've done a lot of stuff together, a lot of indie movies and a lot of
what's
theater.
the screening at the Metrograph?
The Hungry Ghost.
The Hungry Ghost, okay.
Yeah. So that show was an exception. Most of the time, it's very weird. You work with someone, you get very close, and then like both actors and crew people and stuff, and then you may never see them again,
Yeah.
or you may see them 10 years later, or you may see them a year later. It's weird. It is kind of weird because for that time you're around each other so much, and sometimes being very intimate,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Nothing.
over.
Yeah.
And nothing. Sometimes you never see them again.
That's so weird.
It is weird.
But that's life too. Even maybe
That's
not
life, too.
in the intimate
Yeah.
setting that we're talking about, maybe not, but even so, that is life.
It is life. I mean, most people have jobs where they work with the same people for years and years and years, I guess, or it's the same thing I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't know because I haven't done most jobs, but this job, yeah, it is like that.
Yeah. So who do you hang out with on your off time? Like, do you have like regular friends, old friends, your
Both,
wife?
yeah. I have a lot of old friends. I have wife and kids. I have a lot of friends that I've known for many, many years. And some are from, acting and stuff, and some are from show business, some are not, some are other artists, musicians, and I have a lot of friends in the arts.
And you're in California now.
And New York.
Well, not
yeah.
right now. I say now.
No,
obviously now you're
I've
here
become
in New York.
bicoastal. I lived in New York my whole life, and then I spent about 7 years living in Santa Barbara, California, where I still live, and now this year become bicoastal officially. But
Wait, what do you mean officially? What does that mean? Did you buy a place here or something?
I rented a place here.
So how do you feel like you're officially bicoastal?
Because
now?
I have
What
a
is it?
place. I haven't had a
'cause
place here in 7 years.
Got it. So did you rent for like a full year or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
And shipped stuff out.
Okay.
And set up a home here, so which I'm very happy about. But the thing is, I mean, I lived in Santa Barbara, but I can't work in Santa Barbara outside of writing because there's no industry there for me. So I live there, but I also live on the road most of the time. Well, yeah, a lot of the time.
So
I
what
lived
is
in
it
Puerto
like?
Rico for almost a year.
Wait, really? Why?
In 15. I did a show there. I lived in Detroit for a year. I lived in Portugal for half a year. So work takes you everywhere else. I lived in LA for half a year. So
Right. So even if you're going to LA and working, it's still a little schlep.
I rented a place. You can't commute every day from Santa Barbara's too far. You can go down for the day, but you can't commute every day. It's too
It would
far.
kill you.
Yeah, it's like 2.5 hours.
Right. So right now you're here. So you're not only here for just to shoot. You're here because you're bicoastal now,
Yes,
officially. But you are shooting something. Can we talk about that? You want to talk about it or no? Whatever you're shooting right now?
I shot a pilot for NBC, so I mean, they're not good to talk about because
Are you
there's a
jinx
good
it?
chance that there's a chance that no one will ever see it. So, but I'm here this week for I did a reading at the Public Theater on Saturday of Greek tragedies, which was really interesting, and then Wednesday I sent you that invitation with Lydia Lunch. I'm doing
That
the
was
reading.
you?
Well, I'm on the invitation.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like,
Well, who do you think sent it?
who else
I'm reading
would
from
it
my
be?
book with a musician, a bass player behind me. And,
Do you understand my weird response now?
You didn't know it was myself?
No.
Okay. And then the screening is Saturday for the movie. So this week there was a lot happening. But I want to be bicoastal because I want to do more theater. And I never really cracked the theater world in California, so. And theater is if you don't have a place to live in the place you're doing theater, it's very cost prohibitive because you don't get paid
Right.
anything, barely, if at all.
So you said you didn't crack the theater in LA.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you cracked the theater here?
Well, all my colleagues are here and people I work with. My wife and I built a theater and we produced plays, so we have a lot of colleagues in theater here.
So you're going to start up with
and
theater
there's a lot.
now?
I just want to do plays as an actor.
So you
maybe
wanna,
as a director too again.
But when I say you want to start up now, you want to start up acting in theater here in New
I
York
haven't acted
again.
in a play in a long time. Yeah.
How long?
7 years, I think. But the last year, as I've done a lot of events for my book and doing a lot of live readings on stage and kind of performing it, and it's whetted my appetite for more theater. Yeah.
So do you go around and you like a tour almost of a book
Yeah,
reading? So
I
you're not
have.
just opening up and reading one chapter. You're actually going through the whole book?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. Sometimes longer than others. Usually it's that and a conversation at some of these book events and book fairs, book festivals, literary festivals here and in Europe. Because a book came out in Italy and in France in those two languages. So I did it over there as well in some couple of cities in both countries.
How was that?
So that was amazing, yeah. In Rome, we did the Rome International Literary Festival, and it's at the Ancient Forum, which is...
You mean the Forum?
Not the Colosseum, the Forum.
Right,
yeah.
I know what the Forum is.
Yeah, the Forum.
But you did it like outside there?
In the Basilica Maxentius, which is, the remains of a 2,000-year-old temple.
Right.
We did it there. They set up a stage underneath one of the giant arches. That's where my roots are in Rome. My family still, some of them are still there. Some of them came. So it was really a big deal.
Really? So you still
And they
have family
projected
there.
it in Italian on a screen, while I was reading in English.
That is very
great.
cool.
Yeah.
And there were probably plenty of people who were there who could understand English too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then I did a festival in Salerno. They have a literary festival there. That was just awesome. And then in Paris, I did a few events. And in Lille, which is France on the border of Belgium, it's the largest bookstore in Europe, in Lille, France, of all places. And we did an event there.
Oh, okay.
And a lot here. Probably the best literary festival I've ever been to, and that a lot of people feel this, is called Calabash, which is in Jamaica. It's once every 2 years. And that was phenomenal.
What was so good about it?
Well, it's completely grassroots, not corporate sponsored. And yet there's 1,200 people at every event the whole weekend. And there's events, readings all day, poetry and literature and stuff all day long and most of the night. And it's right, the stage is, behind the stage is the ocean, is the sea, Caribbean Sea. And it's mostly attended by people, Jamaicans, It and
is?
Yeah, for the most part. They come for the weekend from all over the island. People come from other countries too. And the most responsive, attentive audience. And then there's, next to the stage, there's this field with all these food shacks and counters and all, none of it is corporate. It's all like local people and individual businesses. And then at midnight every night they have a party, like a dance party, music, bands, and it's just awesome.
That is cool.
It's incredible.
So was that going on? Was
in
your
June.
book? So you did go to that with your book.
Yeah, beginning of June, and it was awesome. And just the audiences, the people, they're so into it.
Yeah, that's cool. So you'll get back to theater. I feel like you're going to be in a play soon now.
I hope so. I don't have any plans now, but I've been putting out feelers here, and having some meetings, and eventually it'll.
And what does your wife do? Does she work in?
My wife and I built the theater, and we were artistic directors, but she is more in the design department, set design, interior design, that kind of stuff.
So does she come back and forth with
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, not always exactly together.
Yeah.
Sometimes like she's coming today for a few days, and for the most part.
And what about your kids? You have sons?
I have 3 kids. Only one left in the house who's 17. The other 2 are already moved on. They're older. So that was always the plan when they were done with school to be here more. But we just kind of sped it up.
So you wanted them to be in school or to grow up in California?
Not necessarily California, but just we reached a point where we didn't want to be in a big city.
Okay.
We kind of burnt out on raising kids in a big city, although most of their lives they were raised here. But
so in Manhattan they were? You were?
Yeah, but I just kind of got overwhelmed. In 2012 we moved. We just wanted to be someplace small and quiet, which we did, and was very good for that.
So.
And nicer weather in the winter.
Right.
Yeah.
So your 17-year-old, that was like what, middle school or something, moving out there?
No, he was 10.
Oh, right. Okay, 10. So it was just before. So it was a good moving time for him.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, I guess so.
And then will he come back out here too?
Sometimes. I mean, I don't know where he's going to go to college.
Uh-huh.
My daughter moved back here. She lives here, and she's my oldest. So we'll see.
What's your daughter like?
She's great. She's brilliant. She's a very smart kid. Smart, talented.
You have a good relationship with everybody?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, luckily.
3 kids. How's that?
It's interesting now, because the nest keeps getting emptier, which is an interesting thing to happen because you spend, when you're raising kids, so much of your life is about that.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden it's not really that as much. And it's a little weird,
Kind of shakes you off your balance.
Oh, yeah, big time. Yeah, shakes you off your balance. In a good way, though.
You lose your equilibrium a little.
A little bit, but that's life.
Yeah. I have 3.
You have 3.
My first one just left.
How old?
19.
19.
She just went to school.
So you're going to be dealing with that eventually.
Yeah.
There you go.
But it is different, I think. And even though just one left already, I see what you're talking about already.
Yeah.
That it is a very different thing. Right? Then like a whole world opens up also almost that was there before, but it was a long time ago.
It's a long time ago because most of your identity is being mom. Or a lot of your identity, yeah.
So a lot of your identity has been mom for a long time?
Yeah. Mom and dad.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. You know what I mean.
I was trying to bring out the ridiculous in you.
Yeah. Well, what is,
So what do you do when you're not thinking about work or the arts and whatever? What are you doing?
I don't have any hobbies, I'll be honest with you.
You have no hobbies?
No.
I hate the word hobby, though. It's so foolish.
I just don't, though. So, work is my hobby, really. I've always done a lot of work in addition to the stuff that people see. Like, you get hired to do a TV show or a movie and you get paid and that's your job and stuff like that. But a lot of the stuff I've done, haven't made money on, like
what?
Like opening a theater, which costs you money basically in the end of the day. I tried not to have that happen, but it does, but, do, act in plays or stuff like that, or write and direct a movie, which, cost money. So a lot of the things that I've been very passionate about, you just do because you want to do them. Yeah. But that's what I've always done my whole life. It's not like something that happened later or something. So I'm really used to that.
Yeah, but it's nice when it can be like that because then your work can also be gratifying, even if it's not lucrative, because it's like your hobby. Or am I wrong?
I don't know. I don't know what it would be like having a hobby. I really don't know. Having this huge interest in something that's other than my work. I don't, outside of of course, family and raising kids. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about something you do.
Yeah. Are you ever bored?
Sometimes, yeah.
So when do you feel bored?
When I go too long without working, yeah. I need to keep working.
And what do you feel like when you're bored? What do you do with yourself?
Good question. I don't know. Try to find some work. Try to get busy. I'm not good when I go too long without working.
Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I don't know. Maybe both.
You should take that Myers-Briggs test. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't believe in those things. You're going to take a test and they're going to tell you what you are. It's like...
You're a combination.
Yeah, all that shit. It's like to distill things and whose criterion is that? It's like they have these schools in New York. It's a big controversy now because the best public schools academically are, for years, the admissions is based on a test. Mm-hmm. And now the mayor's trying to change that, and the people who've always gotten in because they're good at the tests are pissed off because they're not going to get in.
Right.
Or whatever.
It's not only because they're good at the test, but they can afford generally to get tutors for the tests. Is that what we're talking about here?
I don't know,
okay.
Not necessarily, but they've whoever it is a test a measure of what somebody who's 13 what their potential is.
Well,
it's one aspect.
Yeah.
But it's been all or nothing. In terms of the admissions, taking that test, sure, it's an aspect of some academic intellectual capabilities, but it's not the sole measure of a kid. I think it should only be one aspect, one criterion, not the whole thing,
Well, a lot of colleges now are test optional.
Yeah, it's good.
So you don't have to take the
That's
SAT
great.
or the ACT, because not everybody does well. Even it's not necessarily just one aspect, but some people actually have a lot of trouble taking tests.
Of course.
So.
And some people, their brains work differently, and their real gifts and talent are not applied in that kind of analytical whatever way. It's like they're more intuitive, or they're more artistic, or they're more emotional. It's like, and all those things are important.
Yeah. So how is this conversation for you? Tell me.
How? Mean
yes,
what?
Reflect
Good or
on
bad?
It.
Good.
No.
It's a good conversation.
Well, I'll take good if we're going like that. But tell me what this experience is for you.
Now we're not doing the conversation. We're talking about the conversation.
All right. Let me take that back.
We should just have the conversation.
We did have the conversation.
We are having.
We are having. See this right here? What's going on? It's the conversation, because whatever your answer was to me just now was regular conversation.
Right.
So we're back to conversation again.
Yeah, good.
I took
That's
us out for one question, and then I put it back in.
Yeah. I don't know. Who cares? Who cares if it's good or bad or how it is? It is, right?
You're really an artist in this way.
We all get so caught up in, when we had the theater, it was very interesting because theater in New York, you really need good reviews. They're really about
and like immediately
reviews,
you could be shut down, right?
And awards, reviews and awards are good for business. That's really all they're good for. They're, if you allow that to, make you feel like you've done well, you're in trouble. Mm-hmm. They're good for business, good reviews. And we would do a play, and obviously we decided to do a play. We believed in it a lot because we had a lot of options of plays to do, and we were very selective. And then you put a lot of effort, and you hire people, and you put a lot of your heart and money into it. And some are better than others, obviously, but you believe in it. And then the reviews come out, and the funny thing was, from pretty much the same strata of critic, you'd have one person write something, it was an amazing piece of work, blah, 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 one person who just hated it. And that happened so often where you just realized, what does this mean?
Yeah, well, it's subjective. Hello.
Of course.
Everybody's going to experience something. There is no objective good or bad.
No. I mean, there's some things that a lot of people subjectively like it, right? That still doesn't, because what I realized is you may just touch one person very profoundly and nothing can mitigate that,
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's huge.
That's meaningful.
That's very meaningful.
More than approval. That's purpose almost.
Yeah.
And it's gratification.
And, someone may be going through something in their life that they see in a different perspective because something they see on the screen or on stage or on a page.
Do they tell you that?
Sometimes.
They do.
Probably more often not.
But probably a fraction of the people who experience that actually get to the point of telling you, too.
Yeah, most.
All right, so there's probably so many, like larger numbers of people that have been impacted.
Yeah, and a lot of people aren't, and sometimes things aren't, they fall short in different aspects, but you have to, just stand by your stuff, your work.
Any regrets?
I miss people, that have died, basically.
Really?
Yeah.
Like
I don't know if that's a regret, but I just miss. One of my best friends lived around here. He had a restaurant the restaurant is still going on, Chez Josephine. Jean-Claude Baker, he was one of Josephine's adopted children, and I worked there. I worked for him when I was 21. I used to live in this neighborhood in the 80s, and then I worked there, and then I quit and didn't talk to him for a number of years, and then kind of reunited, and we were best friends for a long time, and he died 4 years ago. I miss him a lot. Yeah.
Do you think about him a lot, or did this bring it up for you?
I think about him all the time. Because he was someone I'd go to when I was, really going through personal difficulties and stuff. And not always for that, but, I really miss him. And I miss my grandparents a lot. I miss Jim Gandolfini a lot. He was a really good friend. So,
I thought people didn't get to know him that well. Did I?
I knew him really well.
You did, personally.
We knew each other pretty well on the cast, the core group of actors there. Yeah.
I feel like I talked to Edie Falco, and I remember she said she
Edie
didn't
hang out with Jim.
Oh,
Edie
okay.
worked an awful lot with Jim.
Yeah.
But we all hung out a lot together.
Okay, so you did know him very well.
It was a little more of a boys' club, going out and hanging out. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And you said your grandparents? Were you close to them growing up?
Very close. Yeah.
Did they live with you?
I lived with them for a lot of my life, yeah. So, miss them a lot.
So you think
I guess
about
the
all
regret
of them
is, that they're not, I regret that I'm not with them.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a regret. Anything. A regret is usually something you did or did not do.
I don't think I have regrets.
But you have things that make you sad in hindsight.
Miss people. Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows you the best right now?
My wife.
So she sees all sides.
Yeah, you'd have to ask her, I guess, but probably.
I'll have to do a phoner with her. To get the scoop.
She won't do it.
Do your kids know you well?
They do, but you're always dad, you know what I mean? Like, you can't be cool.
Do they have any idea who you are?
They do, but
professionally?
But like I said, it doesn't matter. You still can't be cool.
Did they watch The Sopranos?
Some of them did, yeah.
What did they think?
They like it, I think they like it a lot. But, you way above all that stuff, you're a dad.
Yeah.
Way above it.
So did they ever watch you as Spider in Goodfellas? Because
sure
that would be so weird. Because you were
everything.
young then, too. Not that you're not young now, so I take that
I'm
back.
not young now. I'm old. I'm
That's
53. I'm not young. Definitely not young.
It's all relative, though. Don't you realize that when you're 85, you're going to be like, what was I talking about?
I'll show you something. My dad just gave me this. So, like, my parents are packing their house because they're moving. And
where do your parents live?
They live in Mount Vernon, New York.
Oh, they're still in Mount Vernon where you grew up.
So I didn't know that this even existed.
I like the colors of your phone.
That is 1985 in the basement of Exterminator Chili Restaurant.
I don't even know what I'm looking at
in
right
Tribeca.
Where are you in this picture?
That's me at 19.
What?
And that's Iggy Pop in the basement of my restaurant where I was a cook. He was filming MTV guest VJ, and they filmed in the basement. And they said, why don't you show Iggy how to chop onions?
So
my dad had this picture, and I didn't even know there was a picture. I'm like, but the funny thing is, so now that restaurant, it's on the corner of Church and Walker Street. It was, right? It only lasted in the 80s, and it's been a bunch of things since then. But now it's a place called Bel Rev. My daughter works there, which I find hilarious.
No way.
Yeah, it's weird, right?
I love that. That is so cool. I can't even see you in that picture, though. Your hair was like super light.
Yeah.
Like light brown. Is that what it used to be?
Yeah, I guess so.
Because it looks so dark in all the other things I've seen you in.
Yeah.
Hair color changes, I guess.
I don't know. Sometimes on camera it's lighting and stuff like that.
Isn't it weird, though, how you end up, like things like that, where your daughter can be in the same place?
It's
like,
really weird.
It's so weird. And it's cool.
It is cool.
All right, should we wrap up?
What time is it? 3?
Let's take
5 minutes.
5 minutes? Okay, let's take 5 minutes. You know what I wanted to ask you? If you could act in anything, any TV show current, let's go with TV shows current or past. If you could have a role, recurring, whatever you call it, what's the regular one? Your regular, whatever. What would you want to be in? An existing show?
I don't know. I mean, I don't really look at things like that. Like, if I watch something, I don't like, God, I wish I was on this show. I just kind of...
Not American Dad?
Yeah, I would, but a lot of these things like The Simpsons and shit, they pay you scale, right? So Simpsons makes like billions of dollars. All those actors are like, have made hundreds of millions of dollars, and they want you to go on, and I did that. They want you to go on and do like this guest spot, and they pay you scale, which is what I got paid when I started in this business when I was 21. Which I find a little offensive.
Oh, so to be a guest spot, and you would probably be on as yourself? Would you be your...
No, not even.
You'd be anybody.
You're a guest, and a lot of these shows, they pay you scale, which I find
okay,
kind
so
of,
not just The Simpsons.
Which I find offensive. It's like, come on, man. Like, oh, that's what we do, everyone. Well, you shouldn't. You're hiring me because people know me, and you know me. You're not hiring me just because I auditioned and you liked me, and I'm trying to break into the business. So show the love. Break the bread.
So there are a couple
I just
reasons.
got offered some animated thing, and that's on a big giant streaming network, right? They're like,
Netflix?
I'm not going to say. So they like, you want to do this thing, and there's a lot of cool people in it who are producers and are also on it, and they offer me scale. I'm like, I worked for scale when I was 22. Does any of these network executives want to go back to what they got paid when they broke into the business in their early 20s out of college? Now that you're 53? That's fucked. No? I hate that shit.
It's like
I'll do a movie for free if it's like if I have a friend who's doing an indie that he's making for like 20 grand and his mother's making lasagna for the crew. I'll do that for free. I don't have a problem with that. I'll do a play for nothing in a basement. I don't care. I get that. If I want to do it and I believe in it. But I don't like working for big giant corporations and for big mega successes for scale. I find that insulting.
So what is scale? What are we talking about?
Scale is the union minimum pay
so like what
that
is
an actor has to get. I don't know. You have to look it up. But I'm saying it's whatever the union minimum is.
So
which
it's
is
like minimum wage, basically.
It's not minimum. It's not. It's more than minimum wage for labor law.
But it's the equivalent of minimum wage.
It's the least you can pay. It's the absolute least you can pay a union actor.
And that's what they're going to...
That's what you get paid when you start in the business. That's what I got paid when I was 22, before anyone knew who I was, before I ever did anything. And they want to give you that. It's probably more. It's more now because it's 30 years later. Those things rise, but it's still the minimum. So it's like you're supposed to feel honored because you're doing this show. It's like I don't feel honored doing any of this unless I'm really passionate. It's not. It's not a. There's nobody in acting that's the thrill for me to meet anymore. The only person I'd be thrilled to meet is the Dalai Lama, maybe. But there's nobody in show business that impresses me that much. Morrissey, maybe. That's it. I'm not going to get it. Oh, it's really great to work, so I'm going to work for free and do this. It's not my thing. Because basically, scale, it winds up being practically for free by the time you pay tax and your manager and your agent and your lawyer and whoever else you're paying. So...
Right, they can't offer. Well, this is just.
But they do.
But they do.
Yeah.
So
and I've done it. I know because my kids wanted me to do The Simpsons, and I'm pretty sure they paid scale. If you didn't, if you paid me more than scale, then I apologize. But if you did, I don't.
So what do you do?
If you do pay scale, you shouldn't. You should not pay. Known actors scale. We don't like it. Let me tell you that. I'll put it that way.
That's obnoxious.
Don't you agree?
Yeah, I do agree.
This. A good friend of mine died last week. His name was Seymour Cassell. He was an actor. He died at 84. He acted for 60 years, just about. Started out with John Cassavetes. Was nominated for an Oscar in Cassavetes' Faces. It was in a lot of movies forever. He was a character actor. And he was on the SAG board. And he educated me a lot and just said, actors have to fight for... against the corporate greed that's always trying to chip away at what actors get paid, and there was at one point they were trying to do something like, residuals are what an actor gets. Like you do a movie and if they show the movie on TV or they rerun your TV show, you get a residual payment, right? They tried to pass something where when the actor dies, the residuals would go back to the studio or something like that. Now, why shouldn't the guys, the widow get it?
That's outrageous.
It's basically, it's kind of like a pension almost.
Yeah.
And he made me aware of a lot of these things. It's like, and it's the weird thing is, for so long trying to get work as an actor, it's so hard. So you get used to just like doing whatever to work, But then when you start working, it's like, all right, now you got to,
pick and choose.
Yeah. I mean, because you're hiring someone who has... people have seen, they know you, they know your work. That carries some value. You have to pay for that.
I think a lot of value that carries.
Yeah, so.
That's like the biggest risk, isn't it, for them, that they don't want to hire people who are unknowns. They want a sure thing.
You got to pay for that.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be, I'm not talking about, you're not going to go on as a guest and get paid with the stars. I understand that. I'm just saying you have to be appreciative.
When you're not a newbie.
Yeah. They're like, well, that's our policy. That's what we pay everyone. Well, don't. You can pay unknowns that, people who are trying to break into the business, they'll gladly do it.
So do they negotiate at that point, or are they like, this is it, it's
No, a
scale
lot of
or
these
nothing?
shows, that's it. Yeah, that's their policy.
So you either accept it as is, that's final
and
offer.
I stopped doing it. I don't accept it anymore.
So do you have an agent, though, who normally tries to negotiate different
course.
deals for you?
Of course. Manager and agent, they get you work.
What does a manager do then, different from
manager,
an agent?
you know, an agency is usually a very big company and they have a lot of clients. So it's, you know, so they're just really project focused, whereas the manager is much more involved in everything, the more of your whole kind of choices of career. And I do a lot of things besides acting, so they're involved in all that, like my book stuff and my, you know, events and press and travel and career guidance and all that stuff, whereas the agents, you know, they have a lot more clients, so they're much more focused on, they're the ones dealing with the company, you know, the producers of the individual projects.
Are you ever at the point where you feel like, what if I never get a gig again?
I feel like that all the time.
Still.
Everybody, all actors, and I talk to actors all the time, and they all feel that way.
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot,
when you go through a drought,
too.
and they say, you know, what if, you know, it's always happens, and then something happens, and you get a job. It's horrible.
And is it even harder when you've had such good things?
Yes and no. It's the same. I mean, when you don't have good things, that's hard on itself.
Right.
But that keeps happening. Yeah, uncertainty.
What do you do when that bubbles up?
Get miserable.
And that's it? You just doing it?
You do whatever. You go on with your life, you know.
Yeah, but what do you do?
Do
Do you distract yourself? Yeah, okay, take a walk.
I don't know. You just
you
live.
go talk to somebody. You would have talked to maybe the guy you're talking about here.
I don't know. You know.
You just
go through it, yeah.
And then you get a call and it's like, okay.
Job.
Then you forget it.
And then the job's over and you're looking for a job again. A lot of actors, most actors deal with that.
Any regrets being an actor? Would there be? No, not at all.
No. Definitely not.
And especially since you get to do all these other things. You didn't eliminate writing or...
No, I've always done a lot of different things from when I started. You know, it was also kind of the vibe in my world, you know, in New York in the 80s and especially downtown in the Village and, you know, performance art and there was a lot of fluidity in the post-punk world between musicians and performers and stage actors and people writing and directing and underground theater and all. I came from that kind of world. So we were all doing a lot of different things.
All right, this may be a question you've been asked before, but I feel like it's a good closing question.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you tell like a teenage version of yourself if you could go back in time?
I don't know. Be kinder to yourself. Don't be so hard on yourself.
And what do you think your 85-year-old self would say to you?
Don't be so hard on yourself. Be kind to yourself. Exactly the same.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much. That was a lot of fun.
That was Michael Imperioli returning to the podcast. When I edited this, I noticed he brought out different aspects of my personality, like, for example, my more foolish side. So I'm starting to see from a few of my recent guests that some people bring out different sides of me. That's normal. That's human behavior. And I would tell you the same thing happens with everyone, with all of us. So I'm just curious, did you notice that too? Email me, tell me. It's so easy. Just open up your email, type reallyfamouspodcast@gmail.com and introduce yourself. I'd really like to get to know you. Don't forget to watch Michael and me on youtube.com/reallyfamous. Pick up a copy of Michael's book, The Perfume Burned His Eyes. Watch The Sopranos again. Watch Michael as Spider in Goodfellas. And also watch Summer of Sam. Michael wrote the screenplay. Spike Lee directed it. Check out my New York Times piece with Spike Lee. And stay tuned for more fascinating people on Really Famous. I'm Cara Mayer Robinson. Thanks for listening.